Come on, settle down. Okay, today, which is the 25th of September 2020, and you need to sit down and be quiet, please. All right, thank you. Today, we're going to do half the lesson will be the midterm, which is a drawing exercise. Fun. I know it's a test, but you'll do it in groups, and it should be quite painless. First of all, though, I want to show you a film that some of you have seen and tell you about a game. Now, there's a critical thing here. The game. So, once upon a long ago, far away a time, there was a group of postgraduate students who wanted to do some kind of action. Don't break the university. It's okay if you break it. Don't steal the... wanted to do some kind of activity that will work to bring the international students and the home students, this is in England, Queen Mary University, together and to raise issues of relevance to them, to their politics. And they produced, after a number of discussions, this thing called the Queen Mary Counter Map. And I want to show you it, but there are too many people to play it. So what I'll do is get you to, in groups of 6 or so, get you to unfold it very carefully, don't rip it, and have a look, you lot here. This back here. So you have to look at it, then pass it back. So unfold it carefully here, and then you can pass it back to them. And I have to use this one to demonstrate. So what it was, first of all, a map of the University of Queen Mary, upside down. A map of the university, which is in London, right? And a kind of conceptual mapping of where students came from, right? And these were the international students, and the size of the other countries, America, Pakistan, India, so on, were relative to the number of students that came from there. So you see, China is not much bigger than India, but in reality it is. And Europe is nearly as big as China, which is not true. And these red lines, which are little brains walking along, you see, is the brain drain, right? We've been talking about that in previous weeks. The brain drain of the very best students with the very most money. No, it used to be, once upon a time, international education was for the very best students who knew someone in the political system, and it was a kind of international aid. So like the Australian government would make a certain number of positions available for students in every country Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and so on, and invite them and pay for them to come as a kind of foreign aid. But since the 1970s, 1980s really, all the positions, nearly all the positions, a few scholarships remain, but most positions for international students are about the business of international education, selling degrees by selling education, by bringing international students who pay very large fees to study because they want a foreign degree in their country that will then be a good investment. Or, and this is the problem with the brain drain, once you spend 4 years or more doing your degree in an international university, quite often you don't come back. And so that's really the brain drain. You lose that person from the sending country for 10 years, the best years of their life and all of that. Well, the most productive years of their life. Sometimes. Anyway, this map shows this, and the whole thing was to try and educate people, to illustrate, they did a lot of research for this, illustrate the ways in which the university was profiting. Its business model was based on selling education to international students. Now, since COVID, this has become exposed very much. For example, just this week, the Vice Chancellor of my own university, the University of Melbourne, where I did my PhD, he said, well, this is a very serious situation for us. With the loss of international students, because they can't come, 59% of the funding that came for education, for studies, 59%, which came from just 40% of the students, was wiped out because they can't come, because of COVID, no flights, right? 59% of the funding for the university, more than half, coming from less than half, 40% of the students. Okay, I say 40% of students contribute 59% of funds. Student funds. Money earned from students. They also earn some money from research. When I say contribute, I really mean charge. And I sort of also mean robbed. Because education should be free. It's so important for every country. It should be universal. There should be a global government that says world socialism, blah, 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 free. But it's not, so robbed. So this is the fleecing process. And this Queen Mary group wanted to map that process. They made an illustration of England, London. You see there's some important parts of London here, where Occupy was, and the bank, the city centre, and lots of information in these boxes about, especially, you know, the money that is taken for fees is not the only cost and is not the only profit centre. Of course, it costs money to get a visa, to get various permits, and all these different organisations across the board, including housing services, bespoke taxi companies that will take students from the airport to their halls of residence, their accommodation, kituksa type thing, all are seen as contribution to the economy of UK. And of course, America is the same, Australia is the same. Germany, not so much. You don't have to pay fees, but then, and of course, there's also a beautification a lot of money that comes from this contribution is spent on making the campus seem safe and pretty for the parents of international students, because they have to take lots of photos and send them back to their parents and say, we're doing okay here, Mom, right? But there was a massive divide between the international students and the home students, partly because of their separate situation, partly because of language, partly because of racism. Of course, some white students who are also starting to pay high fees for their degrees in England. Okay, overseas students, £15,000. Huge amount of money, £15,000. Oh, I don't know, something like Nam Cham Chu Dong. Nam Cham Chu? Yeah. For your fee, plus Nam Cham Chu Dong for your living cost in London, because it's expensive. And accommodation is expensive. So the students, right, so foreign students pay Nam Cham Chu, but English students are paying Ba Cham Chu now. So £9,000, not 15,000, or between 11 and 15,000 pounds. Now, because English students, yeah, so Ba Cham Chu, I think, no? Yeah. Higher than that. A lot, too much, anyway. But because the English students were paying high fees, they started to say, why should we pay high fees to sit in these classes with students whose IELTS level is just 6.5 or 7, not good enough for high-level studies? Why are we paying for this when we are being slowed down? You know, there was racism. Not every student was like that, but a few started to say that. So this group wanted to try and challenge that, to say, no, this is not solidarity. This is not, you know, we got to work against this racism. But they did all the research. They understood the situation, and they could put it on a map. And, you know, they made the map look kind of nice. It had a legend. They spent a lot of time laying it out. But that didn't do enough, because you see the map on the wall as you're walking past, and big deal. You're rushing to your next class that you're paying to be. You're sitting in a class, and it's costing you like £5 per hour, if you work it out. Not really that, but something like that. Your cost every minute, every word costs a certain amount. So when have you got time to look at this information? So they did the research, they had the information, but how to communicate it, how to get the poster from here inside the heads of the international students and the home students. And they were two different groups. So they made this part. There's no up or down on this one. A game. And you play this game, you get a character, you have a character, and we play this game in class. When the class was not so many people, we played this game. This class used to be 20 people. And you get a character, and you go step by step around the thing. And if you see, pick a number between 1 and 6. 5. If you get 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have passed through the first filter. Bravo. Well, you started lucky. Pick a better number. 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is where you learn something. So they went into classes and they said to teachers, can we have 1 hour of your class and we will teach something on the topic of immigration for you, and then they went and played this game. The students love it, it's a game, right? But as you're playing, you learn a lot. 1, 2, 3. Do you hold a qualification taught in English? If you, and then there's a footnote, if you hold a qualification already taught in English, you do not need an English certificate, IELTS or something, if you are from Europe. If you are from Asia, yes, you still do. Racism, number one, again. But flip a coin, yes, move forward 1 tile. No, move forward 1 tile. If you say no, if you get no, you take the language certificate test. Flip a coin. You pass, move forward 1 tile, then you get to 5, bravo. You fail the test, try again, next turn. You have 3 tries. If you don't get it, you go back to the start. Okay, if you land up, say if you get here after a couple of goes, do you need a student visa? And in the game, as you're playing the game, in order to know how to move from each tile, there's like a footnote which tells you the law. So as the students are playing, they learn the law about immigration, not just the law, also the issues. For example, on one of these squares, if you land on this square, this one is called a partnership tile. You see this one? Those of you who have the map, see the partnership tile? If you land on the partnership tile, if you land on the partnership tile, it means you have the chance to get past all the visa requirements, even if you're from Pakistan or China, and become a home student. How do you do that? Get married. You make a marriage with a person from England, you get immediately lower fees, not immediately, after a qualifying period, sorry, lower fees, no visa requirement, no English language requirement, so on and so forth. And many students, of course, just got what we call a visa marriage. You get together and pretend you're married. Just pretend. Of course, government wants to check. But there's even some student political groups will help you prove that you are really married, even though you are not. And it can be boy, boy, girl, girl as well. Of course, gay marriage is legal in England. So you can do that. You have a girlfriend if you're a girl, or boyfriend if you're a boy, or just a friend, any kind of friend, you can do this. But actually to do that, to show the government that you're in a marriage when you're not really making babies, is very difficult. There are some films about it. You can watch a film called Green Card. And it's really an old film, but it tells the story very well. It has a French actor called Gerard Depardieu. Actually, later he got into trouble for, but the trouble was, right, they interview you. Are you really married? What color is her toothbrush? You have to know so much about your partner. I don't even know what color my partner's toothbrush is. How can I pass? But you need to know. Okay, pop quiz. Hello. Manui. Quick survey. How many people here know which color toothpaste their boyfriend, girlfriend use? Okay, you don't necessarily have boyfriend, girlfriend. Okay, brother, sister. How many of you know what color toothbrush your brother and sister, your brother uses, your sister uses? You know it? You do? Really? Okay. Anyone not know it? Okay. Then you are asked that question, maybe you pass a visa marriage. Good. But you need to know so much else. What are their habits? What do they do? You need to show have the shared bedroom, and in the cupboard should be both persons' clothes, even if you actually really sleep in separate rooms. Anyway, that's a partnership tile, not the only one. There are many others, like your grandmother has to have an operation. Can you go and see her? If you live in England, yes. If you live in Pakistan, if you're from Pakistan, if you leave the country while you are a student, you have to go through all the visa problems again. So you learn a lot from playing this game. But also, it's a little bit rigged. Like, you would find this out if we played it. But when you choose your character, if you choose that you are English, you go through quite quickly and get to the end and win. If you are from Pakistan or China, very difficult to get to be the winner. So the game is a bit rigged because the system is rigged. And then so in the classroom for 40 minutes, we would play the game and then have a 20-minute discussion about what we learned about that. And these would be mixed classes, some international students and some home students, and they got to talk to each other, share the information, build the knowledge, and then talk about what to do about this. How to put pressure on the governance of Queen Mary to make the conditions better. So it was quite successful. Just to show you what you can do with a poster, with a bit of research. It doesn't have to be an essay. They did as much research, maybe even more than a normal essay. We worked on this for, I think, about 2 months. It wasn't for assessment, it was an independent project, but still, if someone submit something like this as an essay for me, I think, yeah, great, amazing, fantastic. Because I think that every student should be a researcher, every person in the university should be a researcher. What I want you to do for your final projects in this course is something like the research that went behind this. They looked into what the university was doing and what society was doing with universities and picked an issue and really found out a lot about that. And then thought about how to present it. Okay, in this course, in the end, I want you to present an essay. Wow, what was that? Strange electronic interference. Want you to present an essay, but in the final, but for the midterm, which will be today, the part 1, but you can submit it in about 2 weeks' time. We have no class next week, right? So you have a week of fun exams. I should tell you there are no exams in this course because I hate exam. I don't think you learn much from prepping for an exam. You learn some information that you forget the next week. Right? Some people, maybe it's good to show that you have learned something, some process, like driving a car. Yeah, I think you probably should have an exam for that. But critical thinking is not a driving a car type thing. Like, you are not going to kill someone because you do critical thinking. Well, yeah, you might be dangerous if you don't do critical thinking. You could be the president of the United States. Very dangerous because not critical thinking. But you can't really test critical thinking. Like, oh yes, critical thinking. You have a pulse, you must be thinking. Right? Is it critical? We don't know. So no exam. Also, that's how I chose my degree. The reason I ended up in anthropology and social science is because those courses had no exams in my university. Should have done accounting, I'd be rich. Anyway, so your final for this course is an essay, but the midterm is in groups. What we'll do to start today, well, for the first class, Nhom 2 in this group, you are Nhom 1, right? For the first class, it was to make a map, but it's different for this one. I want you to think about, when we look at the paper, think about a university brochure for your ideal university. But mainly I wanted to talk about the final, because you'll do that independently. What research will you do for your final? When I say your final should be something about a presentation of what your ideal university will look like. Not Tonduktan, an imaginary university. A university in which whatever you like, whatever you think should be in a university will be there. Like it might be 25 hours every week of study of kakmak. That would be what I would put. And then 15 hours of sleeping. So every class will have bean bags and hammocks and in the corner of every class there will be a Sinto stall and so on. And also no uniforms and no slippers in the library and no presidents or administrative people, not too much administrative bullshit jobs. Not saying anything about our president, who, you know, we love, but your imaginary university. And I'm not opposed to you saying this university should be really radical. Should not just be for people, can also be for animals. Why not? I've been reading a lot of Twitter this week where people, you know, against transphobia, against homophobia, against anti-lesbian. People are also now saying, and animals. Really? Really? Anyway, by the by, I'm not anti-animals, but I don't think octopuses should be boyfriends, girlfriends of humans. But if they are, okay. So your thinking should be about what is your ideal university, and then what research do you need to do to really have a lot of information, detail, or critical thinking about that. For example, because I think if I was doing the assignment, I think my idea is that everyone in the university should be a researcher. Staff, everyone, students, sure, you can be researchers. The search for new knowledge, research. You know there's an area, anthropology, you know there's already some things to learn, but there's also some things we know we don't yet know. You need to search for that area. But I think not only should staff, professors, and students be researchers, but everyone in the university should do research. So the people in catering, in Kituksa, they should be doing research on what is the best, healthiest food and cheapest food for this community. The people who build the buildings, they should be doing research about what is the best architecture for a classroom. For example, are these the best shaped desks? Should the gap be this wide, or in some classes it's only that wide? Should there be all these windows and no blinds, so you can't see sometimes right? Not only that, what are the new technologies that we should have in a classroom? The architects, the people who build, the builders who build the buildings should be researchers as well. What about the gardening, the environment? They should be doing research on latest ecological, and thinking about, even those who think about the presentation of the university to the public should be thinking about environment. Right? They obviously have a little bit, right? We have a kind of fence to stop people from parking their motorcycle on the front street, and no street food on this side of the road. On the other side of the road, you walk along, you're pushed out into the traffic all the time. I don't know how many students we lost from traffic. I bet you there's some, right? But somebody has been thinking about that. So my idea would be everyone is a researcher in the university. What work do I need to do to really get that idea happening? I need to go and talk to the people who do the building, the security guards, to think about what are their issues, the gardeners. I need to talk to them to find out what they are doing and what are their issues. What is their day like? Maybe they don't have time for that. It might be difficult, but I should try to interview those people who are designing the rooms, the buildings. Already we have like 20 buildings or something. So some high-powered research has gone into this. So I would have a project. It wouldn't be about immigration and international students. It would be about how to bring ideas into every part of the university as a requirement. So the issue will be probably time, actually. Because someone who works in building or works in gardening in the grounds does not have an allocation of time for research. You need to have like 30% of your time should be just free for research. How do we make that change in the university? In your imaginary ideal university, you can just make it happen. Of course, here we would have to have a whole lot of meetings and have a policy decision, and probably MOE, the government department, will have to stamp it to let it happen. But why not? I would say I can make an argument, and that would be your essay, right? Making an argument to say that, well, that would be my essay. Making an argument to say why there should be time for every different section of the university community to be a researcher. That would be a real university for me. Not some place where some people get to do research, some people get to be customers, some people get to be consumers, and some people are just workers. That seems like that just repeats the structure of capitalism. Okay, yes, we also have to learn about that, so I'm fantasizing, but nonetheless, that's what critical thinking is, to think what are the possible alternatives. So now what for you would be the ideal university? I suggested a university that would not just be focused on people. Okay, we can't have animals sitting in classrooms. We can train them a little bit, but it's not like that kind of university. But what is the area of research and study that includes human and animals, the function, the role, the importance of animals to social life? Right now, in your body, you have like 200,000 organisms helping you digest your breakfast, if you had breakfast. Living in your stomach, there are other animals, well, in biological microscopic entities, but every day we also have interaction with animals, even if we are alienated from it. How many of you this day have already drunk some milk? Anyone drunk milk today in a coffee, in a cold drink or hot drink? Anyone? Not only one person, 2 people and 3 people drunk milk. So obviously relationship with cows, possibly goats, but mostly cows, right? How many people last night ate any kind of meat? Most of you. Some vegetarians, but Even vegetarians have a relationship to animals because, yeah, all right, meat eaters obviously have a relationship to animals, but even vegetarians rely on bees, for example, to pollinate, and many other kinds of animals that make the vegetable kingdom? No, the natural world exist. So you might have to think, what would a university look like if that was the idea that governed it? So I want you to think of your ideal university. Okay, maybe you think in this university your best idea is no uniform. I want you to think it further. No uniform is a okay thing. I went to a technical school, and one thing the students demanded, and one was that we would not have a uniform. In Australia, that was a big thing in the 1970s. But why? Take it a bit further. Ask the question critically. Why? All right, the reason for having a uniform, we can understand that. Branding, also maybe buying the uniform can be done in mass and cheaper. So if you are not one of the really rich, you can't display it in your clothes. Everyone is the same at one level. But maybe there are arguments for not having uniform. I don't think that's a really big issue, but if that was your only idea, that could also work. But there are so many others. Is your idea freedom of expression? Or is your idea, all right, one thing I think that we don't do enough of in the university, in my fantasy university, we would spend a lot more time working one-to-one on writing, on the craft of writing. So now, if I want to take that idea a bit further, I need to think, okay, so how can we encourage that? How can we develop that? The university needs to bring in writers. Win Noctu should be made a professor and brought to the class to sit one by one with everyone and look at the paragraph, put the paragraph on the page, get it right. Really work on the craft of writing. All right? Not just as a soft skill you do in a different class, but in every class to focus on writing. Maybe, though, that's not the thing that's your idea. Maybe your idea is more, better performance, public speaking, more training on how to grab an audience. Anyway, all up to you. The idea of every student as a researcher was in fact the basis of a film that some time ago now. Some of you have already seen it, right? So this film, I know some of you have already seen it, made the argument that every student should be a researcher. And the reason I'm showing it again, for those of you who have seen it before, the focus was on maps. So making things like this, and you'll see they play the game in this film. But I'm actually thinking of making you do something slightly different, but nonetheless, there's something to learn from this film. Can I turn off the light so you can see it better? And I hope, can you turn the lights off, please? This back one as well? Yeah, good. Leave that one on. No sound. Why don't I have the option of the... Okay, the sound is going to have to be his speakers.
Okay. And so the challenge in this model is something that we've thought about as useful for teaching students who want to see the idea. The idea is to see